More inspiring than Dr. Mukhisa Kituyi, Secretary General of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, based in Geneva. First entered active politics in 1992. Yes, he was a member of Ford Kenya then. What a time, he says. What a time. Kenya has changed in the last 25 years. He's back in Kenya. He comes often because there's a summit in July, huge, bringing together thousands of guests, just what this country needs at this time and place. And he's going to tell us why they're coming and what the intention is. Keep tweeting at UNCTAD Kituyi, at Koinange Jeff, the hashtag July Summit. Daktari, tweets coming in very thick and very fast. Let me just read a couple. Simon Tairara says, Mukhisa Kituyi, that's the kind of leader Kenyans are looking for. I am Clem says, Kenyans rejected his leadership at home and now he's making a difference in the world, and that is inspiring. And then Anthony Kinyo says, Simuongeza time JKL with Mukhisa, it should be 2 hours non-stop. Okay, ongea na KTN. And then Charles the Great says, kindly ask Mukhisa Kituyi what the real economic benefits of the July summit will be for Mwananchi in Kenya and developing countries. Let's go to it first of all, Daktari. So summit is in July.
Yes.
What are the dates?
We'll start with an early phase of two components. One is a Global Commodities Forum, which will be held in Nairobi from Friday the 15th to Sunday the 17th. And the Civil Society Forum, Global Civil Society Forum, which will also start about Thursday, Friday. But the main conference starts Sunday, 17th of July, and ends on Friday, the 22nd of July.
Wow. Yeah. How many people are you expecting?
For the different components, we have a lot of different things happening at the same time.
Yep.
We have every 4 years, my organization has a global conference. And because we have a full membership of the UN, it's a meeting of the United Nations, with all 184 countries represented at different levels. We have a segment with presidents who are coming. We have a segment with ministers of different portfolios coming. We have a segment with United Nations leaders led by the Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, who are coming. And then we have the World Investment Forum, the fourth Global Investment Forum, which brings together the heads, CEOs of the largest companies in the world to discuss collectively how can we be fit for purpose for inclusive prosperity, to leave nobody behind. It will be held in Nairobi at the same time. At the same time, we have a Global Youth Forum, then we have a Global Services Forum. Now, this country is riding a lot on services, whether telecom services, hospitality services industry, the audit and the post-sale services. But we have not structured how to appreciate and grow them. Now we have a platform internationally to listen to drivers of the services industry to see how can we scale up Kenyan performance on the basis of what others are doing. All these components together, we're looking at 7,000 to 8,000 people.
Wow. WTO brought in what, couple of thousand?
1,800.
You're bringing in 7,000 to 8,000. And you mentioned in one of your articles, WTO was mostly a talk shop, that there was nothing tangible that came out of it.
There are a number of things. There's some tangible things that came out of Nairobi, mainly thanks to the very, very, very strong leadership by Minister Amina. But it's also true that some major players betrayed the countries which have been insisting on completing the promise of Doha, particularly African countries, on greater market access for agricultural produce.
Yeah.
That was basically killed off in Nairobi.
And all the time, it's always Africa who is left behind, isn't it? We're always the ones who are kicked to the curb, if you will.
What's the reality of a negotiation? If you don't have many cards, you are the first man off the table.
What are you hoping, like the gentleman asked us, what are you hoping?
What are the main benefits for Kenya?
Yeah.
Now this is an important question that a lot of people have asked me. There is three segments in which you can talk about benefit to Kenya. When you get 7,000 people from around the world, including the president of Colombia, the president of Mongolia, the president of Ireland, coming into town, it's a greater statement that Kenya is ready for tourism than any advertisement you can do. That's one. Number two, our discussions bring the best brains in the world to look globally at how can we deal with global problems. How can we look at the best practices? Kenya is grappling with challenges of how do we expand gainful employment? How do we scale up productivity of Kenyan labor, of Kenyan agriculture? How do we bridge the divide between ICT innovativeness and agricultural access to markets? When you have the best brains in the world discussing the same things, you start having a sense of solutions that you cannot glean from the manifesto of CORD and Jubilee. So that you have another window of opportunity to look beyond what the political teams tell you are solutions to your challenges. Number three, I am bringing here the largest global investment phenomenon ever to come to Africa. The Fourth World Investment Forum, with the CEOs of the largest Forbes companies, with the heads of the largest stock exchanges in the world, with the mayors of the biggest cities in the world. And what do we have? We have matchmaking tents at KICC for 4 days where entrepreneurs can come and meet social entrepreneurs, impact investors, to discuss opportunities of how they can help, what they can do for them. Number four, on the margins of the conference in Nairobi, I have put together a number of investors, entrepreneurs, who are coming to give as a gift to Kenya. Innovation Lab with an idea that builds on and goes beyond what you have at iHub, as a thanks to the innovativeness of Kenyans in ICT-driven innovativeness. We are doing this. We are starting to trigger off partnerships between existing enterprises in Kenya and what other partners can do from best practices.
When you talk to the people, obviously when you're making the invitations and sending out the invitations, what were people saying about coming to that place, coming to Kenya?
Everybody is looking forward to Kenya. A lot of them are looking forward to visiting the Masai Mara on the margins of the conference before or after. But everybody is scared about traffic chaos in Nairobi.
Have you spoken to Kidero?
Yes, and I'm meeting him.
I wish you were here yesterday. Bottom line, are you excited about this? Because this is not the first time UNCTAD is holding a summit in Nairobi, right?
You know, in 1976, UNCTAD had its fourth four-yearly conference in Nairobi.
1976?
1976.
I was 10 years old.
Yeah, the host of that conference was Minister Dr. Kikonyo,
Oh my.
who was looking to be a candidate for the position I hold today. But he made a little tactical mistake. He invited the president of the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos, to come to Nairobi without informing State House. And the State House was wrong to be told that Ferdinand Marcos was at the airport.
Oh no.
You know, in the middle of the conference, Kikonyo Kiano was fired as Minister for Trade and replaced by Manyumba, who had no idea what trade was all about. So one of the learning lessons for me is that every president I've invited has been invited by a letter signed both by me and the president of Kenya. So President Kenyatta knows about all the presidents.
He knows about all of them.
Yes.
So the trade minister should be okay. I mean, they'll be all right.
No. The trade minister is not responsible for which presidents are coming. so we are lucky about that. Yeah.
So Kikonyo Kiano was fired.
Yeah, but no, that's not the main thing about UNCTAD 4. You know,
It's
in
a good story, though.
1976,
Yes.
you know, the problem of commodity-dependent countries which are depending on cereals, on coffee, on tea, on oil, was attempted in 1946 in the lead-up to the first meeting that preceded what we call WTO today, Havana Conference on GATT in 1947. But there was no progress that was made. So after 30 years, 1946 to 1976, the fourth conference of UNCTAD at Nairobi made the most important global commitments on dealing with the injustice on commodity-dependent countries.
Wow.
UNCTAD 4. At UNCTAD 14 in Nairobi, 40 years later, we're standing on the brink of the most important progress on how to reduce vulnerability of commodity-dependent countries since Nairobi 1976.
And are you hoping that something does come out of it? Are you hoping for something tangible?
You know, luckily, you know, we have a number of things. Unlike WTO, where the business was negotiations in Nairobi, for us, most of the negotiations are going on in Geneva.
As we speak.
As we speak. When I left Geneva yesterday evening, we had made very good progress. So there's not much obsession going to be about closed door negotiations, arms twisting. That is dealt with by and large. What we are going to do is to say, this is the first major international conference since the Sustainable Development Goals last July in New York, the Financing for Development Agreement in Addis Ababa last July, and COP21 in Paris last December. So Nairobi is saying, you all made those decisions last year. Walk the talk. Can we see the resources that will open up the possibilities of agriculture in the to the rural woman?
Yes.
Can we see walk the talk that will empower the African young woman who is enterprising but held back by cultural and other norms that inhibit her realizing her potential? Can we see you walk the talk about opening up your markets to digital inclusion, that the digital revolution does not leave Africa behind like other revolutions have done?
Absolutely.
These are issues that are going to be done in open fora in Nairobi.
Dr. Ari, are we on the cusp? Experts keep talking about Africa, Kenya in particular, being on the runway. Being on the runway, waiting to take off. Are we waiting to take off? Are we going to take off?
No, you will eventually take off, but you have not fueled up. Oh, you're on the runway, but you're doing some things that are not adding up.
Yeah, unnecessary things.
Let me give you an example. I have been to Cambodia, and Prime Minister Hun Sen walked me through the challenges he had when Khmer Rouge had killed every university graduate in the country.
Yeah.
They wanted
fields.
illiterates.
The killing fields.
The killing fields. And he told me how he inherited an illiterate country and it started from scratch. Last year, after 15 years, Cambodia was exporting 8 million bicycles to European Union, sports bicycles.
What?
An entrepreneur starts with making cans for cooking fats. On the basis of that, technology modifies and goes up the value chain to make something more complicated and starts making gears for bicycles. In Kenya, you get a big enterprise importing semi-processed cooking fat, palm oil from Malaysia.
Yeah.
It makes soap and cooking fat. 10 years later, it's making soap and cooking fat. When it expands, it opens a branch in Uganda to make soap and cooking fat. Who is going to graduate to making electric kettles and air conditioners and computers if the biggest capital only knows horizontal expansion but does not climb the value chain? The Kenyan private sector must start climbing the value chain of sophistication, complexity, if the potential of the Kenyan mind and enterprise is going to be realized. That's why I'm saying you're on the runway, but you have not fueled up.
Yeah. It must be very frustrating, Dr. Ari, when you see all this potential, and you're talking about the potential, and yet we're wasting it.
You're not totally wasting it. The world is riding on Kenyan developed software. In areas of emergency, you have had champions for the world out of this country. The world has seen how you use mobile handsets to spread market intelligence for agricultural farm producers. The world has noticed not just M-Pesa, but the way you are built on confidence, on payment systems, crossing borders. Kenya drove East Africa to have a flat rate on telephony, mobile telephony, before Europe. Europe has just adopted it now, starting 1st of May. It comes into full force on the 1st of January next year. They are copying from us. The problem is you innovate, then you sit back and others overtake you.
Yes.
East Africa community was ahead of the European Union. They copied the model of East Africa. You froze in space. They moved on. So fuel the tank properly. Remove the political and other inhibitions to the talent that God has endowed in this country, and you'll be major champions for the world.
Absolutely. Major champions like our rugby team, right, Doctor?
Our rugby team, our runners.
Oh, champions.
Our Lupita Nyong'o.
Our Lupitas.
Yeah.
Our Dr. Mukhisa Kituyis. Oh my. We're going to take another break, Dr.
Okay, thank you.
Come back, talk some more. Would you run for politics? Would you by the way, when does your term come up?
I am comfortable where I am. I'm serving the world in a way that I also serve Africa.
You love in Geneva.
I serve Kenya.
Do you ski?
I've been skiing. I lived in Norway for 7 years. I knew skiing before I went to Geneva.
Black people ski?
Oh yes, and you have Kenyans who have been preparing for Olympic skiing competitions.
Dr. Mukhisa Kituyi, what a man! What an inspiration. Keep tweeting at Mukhisa Kituyi, at Koinange Jeff, the hashtag July Summit, one of the most important summits to happen in this country in recent years, bringing to the country about 8,000 guests. Let's get ready to welcome the world. In the meantime, Jeff Koinange live at the Villa Rosa Kempinski takes another break. We'll be back in a moment.